starter. My kids don't think I'm very good at measuring. That's my workout for the day. Hello friends, welcome to Daily Sourdough. I am so excited about today's video because it's delicious and because so many people have requested this video. Today we are making cinnamon raisin bread. Yum! I love this video because it makes 3 good sized loaves or 2 really large loaves, and it's always nice to have to give to friends and neighbors. So let's get started by adding 2 cups of really lively starter. I fed this starter last night and it is so bubbly. It's going to be perfect. One great thing about this recipe is that if you start it first thing in the morning, it's ready to hand deliver to your friends or neighbors by evening. And then add to that 3 cups of water. And today I'm using water that's slightly warm because my house is so cold today. And then just stir that gently until your starter begins to dissolve in the water. We'll just take a couple of minutes. And while that's dissolving, add a 1/4 cup of oil. And I'm using avocado oil because it just has such a mild flavor. Use the oil of your choice. Then add 2 tablespoons of honey. I'm really excited today because this is the honey that I harvested this fall and it is so fun to use. Delicious. So 2 tablespoons of honey. Now my little bees are hibernating and hopefully getting geared up to make more honey next summer. Now just stir that a few minutes, let it dissolve in the water, and then add 3 teaspoons of salt. Now add to that 6 cups of bread flour. And bread flour is best because when making bread, because it has a higher protein content, and so it'll have more structure to your bread. Oh, this bowl is not big enough. So just stir that up. Okay, then when your flour is mixed in, you can continue to mix it with a spoon if you like. I'm going to use my hand to mix it thoroughly because my hand knows better than a spoon when it's finished mixing, and the warmth of my hand really livens the yeast and the bacteria and the living organisms in my sourdough starter. So mixing it with your hand is just a really good way of getting to know your bread better. In my opinion, it'll make you a better bread maker. You'll have a real sense of what it needs. Now this dough is very sticky to begin with, and so it's going to need several stretch and folds to tighten up the gluten. Now you can see how wet this dough is, and we're going to be adding a little more flour as we go along, but a wetter dough generally rises higher, so we're going to leave it on the wet side. And it will just take some stretch and folds to get it tightened up. We're going to let this rest for about 15 to 20 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll do our first stretch and fold. It's time for our first stretch and fold, and I have a bowl of flour here to dip my hand into because the dough is so sticky. So I'm just going to get a little flour in my hand and then reach under, and you can just see it's so wet. So because of that, I'm going to just get a little extra flour and sprinkle it over. And this is why I like to mix with my hands, because then I know what my dough needs. I can feel it with my hand. So So we'll just do a few rounds of stretch and fold here. Get a little bit of flour on my hand, keep going around the bowl. Lift it up and fold it over itself. In fact, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on there. And as you go around the bowl, you can already feel the dough tightening up. So it just needs a little work, a little loving care, a little stretch in the morning, just like I need a stretch in the morning to wake up my body. So just go around the bowl 3 or 4 times. So don't ever worry if your dough is too sticky. It's so much worse if your dough is too stiff, because then your bread will just be heavy and it won't rise as well. If it's sticky, it's gonna rise higher, and you can always add just a little extra flour. So it's always better to err on the sticky side. Now cover this with plastic wrap. I'm gonna use a shower cap and let this rest for 30 minutes to an hour, whatever your schedule allows for, and then come back and do another series of stretch and fold. In fact, we're going to do a total of 4 stretch and folds, and in the 4th stretch and fold, we're going to add our raisins. So keep that in mind. So every 30 minutes or so, do a stretch and fold. My dough is ready for its 4th and final stretch and fold, and this is when I'm going to add the raisins. If you prefer to have your raisins just along the swirl, don't add your raisins now. But if you like to have your raisins spread throughout your bread, then add them during the final stretch and fold. And I'd say add approximately a cup, but just sprinkle some on there. Have a little flour ready because it's still a little bit sticky, but definitely holding up better. And then just begin stretching and folding those raisins into your dough. And I'm extra excited today because I'm using homegrown raisins. I made these raisins myself. I had so many grapes this year that I decided for the first time to use some of them as raisins, and all I did was pick them, then wash the grapes, and then I put them in my dehydrator, and it took a few days, and then I finished them in the sun. I put them on a tray, put them in the sunshine, and let them finish in the sun. And I made a bunch of raisins. So this year, along with my raisin bread, I'm going to give a little jar of raisins to accompany it to my friends and neighbors. So it's been fun for me. But just continue to fold the raisins into your dough and see how sticky the dough still is. So just add a little bit of flour, not too much. You don't want to stiffen it up too much, because working the dough is going to stiffen it up. So just continue to stretch and fold your dough. Give it another 3 full rounds probably, adding raisins as you go. So just add as many as you like. You can always add more later if you need to. Now cover your dough and let it rest in a sunny window for about 6 hours, and then it will be ready to shape. Bread is ready to shape. I had to switch it to a bigger bowl because it just rose so much. But take your bench scraper and use it to get your dough out. It's still going to be on the sticky side, so don't worry about that. And then take all of your dough out. Put it on the countertop. This recipe will make 2 very large loaves or 3 medium-sized loaves, and so I'm going to flour the dough and just make a line down where I want to cut, because it's so sticky that it's going to help me cut the dough a little bit better. So I'm going to cut this into thirds, and then using my scraper I'm going to cut the dough. set it to the side. The bench scraper really helps to move this sticky dough around. So I highly recommend one of these. All right, now we're ready to shape this. I am gonna just flour my hands a little as I pat it out. Oh, it's so soft and tender, it's so pretty. If you're really struggling with the wet dough, then just sprinkle a little bit on your counter, a little bit on your bread dough, and knead the flour in. It'll make it a little bit more manageable for you. So if it's just so hard to manage, just go ahead and do that. And then smooth it out. You're going to kind of gently stretch it out so that you can sprinkle it with the cinnamon. And at this point, if you don't think you have enough raisins in it, then this is when you can add more raisins. And sprinkle it heavily with cinnamon. Even though you think it's going to be too much, it won't be too much. So give it a good heavy sprinkling. You'll want to be able to taste it. And then just using your bench scraper, gently roll it up, just as you would cinnamon rolls. And you want to make it kind of a tight roll because you want the swirl to be even in your bread. So roll it as tight as you can, and then pick up your dough and put it into a buttered and lightly floured bread pan. Now cover these with plastic wrap and let them rest in a warm room for about 2 hours. You want the bread to rise to the lip of the pan. Preheat your oven to 400 degrees, then when it's good and hot, put your bread in and bake it for 30 to 35 minutes. And as a little tip, since I live in such a cold climate, I put my bread on a heating pad, just on kind of a low setting, just to give it a little boost because it was sluggish today. But now it's risen great. It needed just a little extra time in the sauna. There you have it, friends. Fresh cinnamon raisin bread straight out of your oven. A beautiful gift for friends and family, and makes excellent toast. You're gonna love this recipe. So give it a try and be sure to stay tuned. I have more recipes on how to use your sourdough on a daily basis.